All right, hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. This is a fairly new channel, and we're going to get a little political today because it affects language learning and language learning programs that are now suffering under the Trump budget cuts and DOGE and some of these issues that we've been seeing in the U.S. now. I received a letter the other day actually an email from NSLI-Y, the National Security Language Initiative for Youth, which is part of AFS, which is a program through the State Department. And actually, my son took part in that many years ago, good 12 years ago, and there's a video which I'll have a link to about his experience there. But for right now, what really matters is this issue of funding. And as the letter says, they're writing to Secretary of State Marco Rubio to tell him, "Dear Secretary Rubio, we write to express our deep displeasure with the Department of State's ongoing grant disbursement freeze for educational and cultural exchange programs, and ask that you immediately unfreeze funding intended for grant distribution in the payment management system." On February 12th, the Department of State announced a temporary pause on payments with absolutely no advance notice to grant recipient organizations. The 15-day pause of grant distribution ended on February 27th, 2025. However, despite the end of the distribution pause, exchange program funding has not resumed. This is the crucial part, putting current American exchange students and faculty at risk abroad. In other words, all the people that are in the middle of their year abroad, semester abroad, and they talk about different programs here. We're talking about high school people, college students, professionals, Bureau of Educational Cultural Affairs programs, 3,500 students from that, 9,100 students that are in exchange programs, and 17,500 international students expected to arrive in the United States in the next 6 months. Over 700 Americans working at the State Department, educational and cultural exchange, have already been furloughed. In other words, fired or laid off. So without lifting the freeze on grants disbursements, over 8,000 Americans who work on program administration will be at risk of losing their livelihoods. And the programs that they're talking about, we can get into this just a little bit here, are programs like the Fulbright scholarships, critical language scholarships, NSLI-Y, YALI, CBX, the Bundestag, Flex. Basically, what we're talking about is all of the programs that teach language to American students so that they can grow into careers in the State Department, in the CIA, clandestine services, in the FBI, in the NSA, in the United Nations, in all manner of State Department jobs like future attachés and ambassadors. Americans have always struggled with learning other languages because the educational system hasn't been geared towards that. It's gotten better in the past, say, 15 years or so, with better programs and more language learning. But these programs that they're talking about here are really critical. These are for the kids who are really interested. These are for scholars and educational leaders. So to see that this freeze was only supposed to be 15 days, but now we're talking a month later. We're talking from February 27th, when it was supposed to end, to March 21st, and it's still going. So I just got this letter today, this email today, again, because my son had been in the program. So really, really upsetting stuff. Languages matter. And these programs are the programs that will help American kids become linguists and become great diplomats and great business people, you know, having that advantage of not having to work through a translator, being able to detect nuance in foreign language discussions, being able to catch it if a foreign diplomat says something and maybe there's a different meaning. If you have these skills, you will just be better at your job. And if you want to be America-centric. This is good for America, but this is good for any country who sends their young people abroad to learn other languages, to be better at whatever they choose to do by being, better language learners, better understanding of other people from other countries and cultures. So something really dear to my heart. The programs we're talking about really quick, where I got the email from, AFS USA. It's been 100 years, and they sponsor the NSLI-Y, so National Security Language Initiative for Youth program. You have the Fulbright scholarships for students. You have the critical language scholarships. Again, there are very, very particular languages where we lag greatly. And some of those languages are here: Arabic, Chinese, Korean, Japanese, and Russian. I think Farsi and Turkish were on there. When my son did the program back in 2011, 2012, he spent 9 months in Trabzon, Turkey. It was considered one of these critical languages. So 7, it says 5 now, but you would have to imagine that at least Farsi, given the tensions between the US and Iran, being able to have more Farsi language speakers to help understand the problems between the two countries right now would be useful. So the Defense Language Institute for Foreign Language Center, which is the one that trains a lot of the military people, I haven't heard anything or been able to find anything yet about whether or not that program has suffered under these freezes. So don't know about that. And once again, this was the video about when my son was over there. That's him on the right in the blue shirt. And he's going to be on our channel in a week or two when we do an interview about his polyglot language learning experience. So again, back to the letter to sum it up. This is a letter that they would like you to send to your congressman or congresswoman, outlining the problem and asking for a resolution. The final paragraph and bullets say, we request that the Department of State explain why grant funding has not resumed, with explanations to the following questions. 1, what kind of reviews have been happening during this pause and to what end? When do you expect this temporary pause to be lifted? And when will grantee reimbursements and payments begin to again be made? In other words, there are people overseas who need to pay rent and food and tuition because they're on one of these programs, and that funding has just been frozen, and they're sitting there without maybe getting the next check for the month of March or April. What are your plans to ensure that participants in current programs, including 3,500 Americans who are abroad right now, are supported and their health, safety, and welfare is not put at risk? 4, if there's a new process or system being implemented, please provide details. 5, have any grants been terminated, and if so, which ones? In other words, they don't even know yet. There's just been all this slash and burn without much thought, and we've seen it in other programs. I'm not even going to get into that because I want to stay really focused on the language part. But this is all about that. So I will put a link below that I got from the email there for the letter that you can use to talk to your congressman or congresswoman and see if we can't get some movement on this. So again, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye now.